Can you sense it? It is the hand calling for you, beckoning for you. Your prey? Comic books.
Yes, comic books. We've talked about getting into the hobby, but what about collecting and getting a hold of comic books? Well, there lies the hunt. Hunting for comics is fun, but you should know what publishing lies to look out for. Let's start with some imprints. Marvel Adventures is an all-ages comic imprint that ran from 2005 to 2012. And before you put up your nose and go, oh, all-ages comics, that's only for children, there are actually some pretty fun stories in here. And actually, one of my favorite issues featuring The Thing is part of this imprint. Unfortunately, a few years after Disney XD tie-in comics, Marvel just gave up and just started doing comics that were essentially just screenshots of episodes that ran on the network. But thankfully, there was hope for the all-ages Marvel comic. Enter IDW in 2019. Under them, we had Marvel Action, which was an imprint with Avengers, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man, and some others. And they continued until 2021. This was the first all-ages line that Marvel had in a while.
Unfortunately, IDW and Marvel parted ways, but Marvel hasn't given up like they did a decade ago. While there isn't necessarily an imprint anymore, there are still all-ages comics coming out from Marvel, but they aren't really under a specific imprint anymore. They're more separated into series.
But what about the distinguished competition?
Don't you mean the divine continuity?
No, I don't.
DC also has an all-ages out-of-continuity imprint from the 2000s. Before the imprint, they had tie-in comics for Batman and Superman the Animated Series. But these weren't technically a publishing line. It was just a comic series. Anyways, the 21st century came around and Johnny DC appeared with a lot of TV tie-in comics. But there were some original titles, Tiny Titans being a personal favorite.
Unfortunately, it didn't in 2012, the same year as Marvel Adventures. But DC got one over on Marvel and started back in 2018. They brought their all-ages books back with DC Zoom, which was later renamed DC Graphic Novels for Kids. There's also DC Graphic Novels for Young Adults, which was originally DC Inc.
And outside of Marvel and DC, there's Scholastic's Graphics line, which adapts prose chapter books into graphic novels, and sometimes original graphic novels.
There's also IDW's Saturday Morning Adventures, which calls back to the 80s cartoons that these properties originate from. But let's take a big dive into the opposite direction with some more mature imprints. Marvel Knights, which is kind of the PG-13 of Marvel. Black Panther, Daredevil, Spider-Man, and other heroes got their own miniseries and ongoings in this imprint.
I mean, you could also add how we had a couple live-action Marvel Knights movies because they were going to make that basically a distribution line for like Marvel films that were lower budget, like Punisher Warzone and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, but it died out very quickly.
I think you just did that.
Well, I guess I did.
Characters like the Sentry, Echo, Shuri, the Russian, and Yelena Bolova first appeared in this imprint. Then there's Marvel Max, which is much more rated R for Marvel. Punisher Max and Alias are probably the most famous out of this line.
Alias isn't a comic book based on the 2000 TV series created by J.J. Abrams. No, it is actually the debut series for Jessica Jones. DC had Vertigo, which was more dedicated to being artistic with creators like Neil Gaiman and Grant Morrison. Also, the publishing line debuted series like Sandman, Preacher, and of course Fables.
Unfortunately, Vertigo ended, but the line lives on with Sandman Universe and DC Black Label. Sandman Universe continues characters from Sandman into several of their own comics.
DC Black Label is a little more complicated. Yeah, they're more dedicated to being more mature and artistic, but in a series called Batman Damned, well, they were too skittish to...
Cock!
I was getting to that.
Oh yeah, is that the one where he has his penis out? Where he's all wangle and then his tangler out. Got his wang tangler. Got the wang tangler.
Yes, he had his Batawang out.
Ah, Batawang. That was a knee slapper.
Yes. Anyways, as I was saying, DC got skittish and didn't want Batman's Batawang out, so, you know, there's a bit of a complication there. Also, All-Star Superman is printed under this label, and I really wouldn't consider that as dark or edgy or mature as something like,
White Knight.
yeah, White Knight or Joker. Not the movie, the comic.
Anyways, a more dedicated vision at DC would be DC's Young Animal, which was actually inspired by Vertigo. It was more focused on the weird and experimental. Also, the line was overseen by Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance and Umbrella Academy fame, so that should give you an idea of what kind of line it is.
But hey, maybe we're getting a little too experimental here. Let's get into
Yeah, you
some...
pretentious bitch.
Let's get into some good jumping on points, entire universes of good jumping on points. And let's start with the Ultimate Universe. The Ultimate Universes are a good place to start, each asking the question, what if we started Marvel in the 21st century? First, Ultimate Universe is flawed. The only comics I would really recommend from there are Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate Marvel Team-Up. But there is a brand new Ultimate Universe that launched this year, and it has had a better success rate than the previous universe. DC has had similar reboot initiatives. There's, of course, Post-Crisis, which takes place after Crisis on Infinite Earths, which happened in the 80s. There's the New 52 in the 2010s, which was rebooted through Flashpoint. There were some mishandlings of the New 52, but most of the New 52 was at least alright, and the initial universe has kind of changed, but we'll get into that later. Outside of the main universe, there was DC Earth 1, which was a series of graphic novels that again asked the question, what if DC was created today? Marvel kind of had a similar idea to Earth 1 with Marvel Season 1, which were, for the most part, retellings of some of the early issues of these characters and series. The exception being Doctor Strange and the Avengers, since these were new tales that were interwoven and intended to be part of the main series. But how about some main universe line-wide relaunches? Marvel's had several, with Marvel Now, All New, All Different, and Marvel Fresh Start, which basically just renumber the series back to number 1 and still remain in the same continuity as the previous series. Kind of like how X-Men 97 is technically a different series from X-Men 92, yet it still is in the same continuity, and you can watch X-Men 97 without watching the original X-Men animated series. If you see a Volume 1 or Issue 1 from one of these publishing lines, you can just pick that up and start from there. DC's biggest relaunches have been DC Rebirth and Dawn of DC. Rebirth came in to clean up the New 52 and bring back some of the old things people like. Dawn of DC continues this continuity and sets up a larger jumping on point for people. Now, if you want something very out of continuity, there's What If and Elseworlds, which dare to ask the questions like, what if the Justice League were cowboys? Or what if Aunt May died instead of Uncle Ben? Fun! There's a lot of Marvel and DC series that first came out as digital comics, and these are very evergreen because, well, they're designed to be new reader-friendly. And a lot of these come in the form of anthologies like It's Jeff. Speaking of anthologies, anthologies are fantastic comics to pick up and buy randomly. DC has seasonal anthologies alongside their anniversary anthologies, and they have anthologies in the form of their big issue anthologies with like Action Comics 1000 and Detective Comics 1000. And if we're going to get a little more broad, comics from the 1930s to the 1980s are very easy to just pick a random issue and just read from there. And you can pick many of these up in reprints. Before we get into some reprint lines, let's get into two concepts that aren't technically publishing lines, but almost every company has done it. There's Year 1 comics that obviously tell the first year of a character's career. There's the limited color comics, which often come in black and white, and more recently, black, white, and red, or black, white, and blood. But there's some different color palettes, like Superman blue and red, and Wonder Woman black and gold. So, let's get into some reprints. Marvel has Marvel Masterworks, which are very pristine recollections of about the first 10 issues of a classic series like Silver Surfer or Spider-Man. They start from the beginning and go onward.
Now, unfortunately, these things can get quite expensive, especially when you get into double digits on these volumes. Fortunately, Marvel has started Mighty Marvel Masterworks, which is much cheaper. Now, there is a little lesser known option out there.
Panini Pocketbooks. These are a godsend for cheap collectors. These collect around 10 issues each, and I have gotten most of mine for at least $10.
And now DC has a very similar new publishing line called Compact Comics. These are $10 each with more evergreen, new reader-friendly, complete stories all in a handy-dandy digest that reprints them.
There's Marvel Digest as well from the 2000s, and they're very similar to Panini Pocketbooks or Compact Comics, but they're mainly focused on comics from that era.
And luckily enough, they have new Marvel Digest, focusing more on 2010s runs.
If you want some random issues under a character theme, there are literally so many best of collections I couldn't even name all of them. But of note is the Archie Marvel Digest, despite the fact that they use the screen grab comics I was talking about earlier in the last few pages. But these are pretty neat. And Marvel Platinum from Panini Comics as well. These are very good. And each company reprints old single issues under something like Facsimiles, which reprints the comic exactly how it was originally printed, or something like True Believers. Now, I may have overloaded your brain a bit, so let me clear things up for you. This is my Amazing Spider-Man collection, from 1 to 180 with the first 5 annuals. Of course, I do have some other Amazing Spider-Man issues after 180. But this is the most through-line collection that I have, at least in trade paperback. Look how non-uniform it looks. Look how chaotic it looks. It is something. It does look chaotic, but I promise you, it is 1 to 180. And you'll notice multiple series that don't match up. Like, there's a Marvel, there's an Epic collection right there. There's an Amazing Spider-Man movie tie-in comic as well. Like, there's 4 Marvel Masterworks and a digest from the 70s or 80s. No, that's definitely the 70s. Like, this does not, like, it's not under the same series, and that's because I'm cheap. Most likely, your collection is going to look a lot like this. Maybe it's not the same character, but if you're collecting under a series, there's going to be a point where you're going to run out of, like, money to continue buying. Like, that's why I stopped buying Marvel Masterworks. Because of, well, they started becoming, like, 50, 60, hundreds of dollars just for, like, volume 7 of Amazing Spider-Man. But I got, like, things like the Lifeline tablet, which is just its own trade paperback collecting a series of stories from Stan Lee's Amazing Spider-Man. Marvel Panini Pocketbooks, which collect 10 issues and were only $10. Like, this looks incredible. And then there's, like, stories like My Amazing Spider-Man Marvel Masterworks Volume 2, which unfortunately... Oh, yep, here it is. And if you can see on the side of the book right there, it's kind of falling apart. And the some of the pages were just missing, obviously. So I got my refund from eBay, obviously, for that. So I got the Amazing Spider-Man number 3 from Pocket Comics, which was a 70s, I believe it was. Yep, 1979 from Simon & Schuster reprint of the, I believe, Amazing Spider-Man 13 through 18. Yeah, that's right. But it didn't have the Sinister Six annual, the first annual. So I had to keep this, and that collected some stories that that are not collected in here beforehand. So, yeah. You should accept, as a collector and a comic book reader, that your collection is not going to be uniform and perfect, because of either they haven't collected that much to the point that you're reading, or it's too expensive, or maybe the series ended, the reprint series ended and they started up something, and like you get something like this that collects 68 through 75 and it's not part of a series of any kind. Reprint series. So, yeah. But speaking of saving money, I wanted to challenge myself and go to some of the stores that I mentioned in the last video. Specifically, Books A Million, Ollie's, Amazon, and 2 comic book shops that I will not mention because I do not want to dox myself. I set myself a limit of $50 to see what I can get and see how much I can collect with just $50. First, the one that I cannot prove, unfortunately, because my phone is dead and it is a brick. I ordered this from Amazon and got it for $8. So you can tally that up. And this is the Marvel Adventures Hulk series, at least the first 10 issues, that were republished by IDW in the Vault of Heroes reprint line. That's my mistake. It collects Marvel Adventures Hulk 1 through 12. But I already have a Marvel Adventures Hulk number 11. What do I do with this? I could either sell it or donate it to a local library, but at least in my experience, we comic collectors like to just give each other extras and duplicates that we have. So, brother, would you like this?
Ow! 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 Ow!
He's fine, he's joking.
No, he's not. He got paper cut on the eye.
If you would, please take this very crumpled receipt and fact-check me. Alright, so, at Ollie's, I got the Wonder Woman Warbringer, which is a adaptation of one of the young adult novels that they put out at DC, and it's adapted by Louise Simonson. So that was $4 or $3.99, and I also got, under DC Black Label and Joe Hill's Hill House Comics, the graphic novel Daphne Byrne. And that came out to $5.99. So, brother, could you confirm that on the receipt?
Yep.
Alright. So, 2 books for, let's say, $10. So we are at $18. Alright, and now once again, would you care to read this receipt? Alright, so I got, as we established earlier, the 2010s Marvel Digest that they've been doing. This is Hawkeye Private Eye, which collects the 2016 1 through 12 Hawkeye series starring Kate Bishop, and that was only $4.97, as you can see with big letters, so that's 5 plus 18, that's 23. And there's Morbius the Loving Vampire. I believe this was a miniseries. And that was...
Morbius the Loving Vampire.
Oh, you almost tricked me. Morbius the Living Vampire, Old Wounds, which was $4.97. And this has...
The Morbius movie definitely is an old wound for me.
Yep, if you didn't know, my lovely girlfriend and camera woman is actually a Morbius fan. Not of the movie, of the character, which makes it hurt even more. But yes, that was $4.97, so that is $28, I believe. Can you confirm that they were both $4.97 on the receipt?
Yes.
Yes. Alright. Now for the comic book stores, which I will not reveal which ones they were. And could you read that receipt? I got Cal, which is an indie comic. I'm not sure what it's about, but it takes place in like World War II, and it's a superhero thing. And Scott Snyder says that it's pretty good. So yeah, I'm excited to look at that, and that was only $5. Can I get a confirmation on that? Yep. And I got another indie comic from Jim Zub and Edwin Klein. And also, Cal was by Kyle Higgins and Alex Eagle. Skull Kickers Volume 1, and as far as I can understand, it's kind of like Borderlands, but in a fantasy world, and these are just mercenaries looking for gold. It's supposed to be fun. And I only got that for $5, which gets us to...
Speaking of which, you can go see Borderlands coming to theaters in August.
Or don't. Which comes out to $38, and I also got this for free. I didn't steal it, obviously. This is a part of a series called Marvel Must-Haves.
Actually, she did steal it. I watched her pick up the comic and book it out of the shop.
No. I mean, it wouldn't matter anyways, because this is free. It says it right there. It's part of a series that Marvel's been doing called Marvel Must-Haves, which collects 3 issues of more modern runs and puts them together in one thing as kind of a sampler of things. Alright. And now, for the last one, we are currently at 38. Would you care to take this receipt from me? And here we go. I got a bunch of single issues from this store, and I got the Elseworlds annual number 7 for Flash. I'm not really sure what this one's about, but it is an Elseworlds, so it's pretty much read whenever you want. And I got a annual number 1 for Superboy, which is also an Elseworlds. And then I got Batman 482. And I got Pinky and the Brain, number 14. Ooh, there you go. And I got Fantastic Four, 536 to 537. I got 2 Amalgam Comics, Speed Demon, and, oh, wrong order, Spider-Boy and Speed Demon, which, if you don't know, Amalgam was basically, due to issue 3 of the Marvel-DC crossover in the 90s, the universes merged and you get things like Super Soldier or Dark Claw, which is a combination of Batman and Wolverine. Despite the fact that Wolverine kills people. But okay! Then I have the annual number 2 for Shadow the Bat, which is also in Elseworlds, and Green Lantern annual number 3 with Green Lantern, which it seems to be John Stewart as the main character, so I am excited about that. So, can you confirm that I paid only $1 for each of these issues?
Collectively, yes. Each one is $1.
$48. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trade paperbacks, and 11 single issues. So that's kind of what you can get for $50. Impressive, I suppose.
Okay, don't brag a bit.
But if you know anything about me, I did kind of break my rule, and I got other comics on my little trip. So I got, alongside the single issues comic book store, I got Magneto and the Magnet Men, or the Magnetic Men from Amalgam, again. Which I think it's...
What is that amalgam?
I think it's... Oh, wait, that's right. It's, the Metal Men. And I believe it's, like, maybe the Acolytes for Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Metal Men is kind of a 60s Silver Age idea that Dan D really loves.
Mm-hmm.
Who was an editor at DC. And then there's X-Patrol! Which is an amalgam of
course.
Teen Titans and X-Force. It looks great. Yeah.
Teen Titan. Wouldn't it be Doom Patrol?
No. Because,
Why call it Patrol then?
I don't know.
Because,
Oh, wait, no,
because
that's right.
that would make more sense, because Doom Patrol and X-Men are very closely related to one another.
Oh, wait, you are actually...
Because Beast Boy was in the original Doom Patrol.
Yeah, there are Doom Patrol's characters here. But this one is Starfire, mixed with Shatterstar. Starfire.
That
but-
sounds terrible.
And then there's Elastigirl, who did not change. Beastling, Niles Cable, and Pharaoh Man. Like, they kind of mix and match with the Amalgam universe. Like, there's a Batman Wolverine Amalgam, obviously. But there's also Bruce Wayne, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Not combined with Nick Fury, just he's the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. or an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Wayne Fury.
Nope, it's Bruce Wayne. It's on the title itself. And also, Doctor Strange Fate. Would you like to guess who he's a combination of?
Doctor Fate, Doctor Strange, oh wow, so shocking.
But at the very end of the issue, there was a big reveal when he takes off his helmet. It's also Charles Xavier. They were playing fast and loose with this. I can't really give you an answer. Then I got the Spider-Girl The Complete Collection, Volume
They
4.
could have paid homage to that by actually making Charles Xavier the Sorcerer Supreme in Multiverse of Madness, but
Yeah,
you know.
you know. I mean, Multiverse of Madness is a great movie.
Yeah.
But I also got the Spider-Girl Complete Collection Volume 4, which is 51 through 67. And that brings my Spider-Girl collection to issue 67. And I got Volume 2 of Batman Detective Comics from the New 52, Volume 7 of the same series, and Volume 8. And I already have some issues of, well, some trades of this series, so yeah. Oh, and also I got the Pinky and the Brain Christmas issue, which definitely brings my total above $50, but I could not resist.
And I hear you asking, how do you keep up with all this? Well, personally, I use a little site and app called League of Comic Geeks, which helps keep track of what you want, what you've read, and what you have. It also lists the issues that are included in the reprints, just like if it was the back of a trade.
Now hopefully that helped just a little bit getting into comics. Next time I do a video, it's going to be a little more specific. We're going to talk about Black Widow.